Welcome to the Success Resequencing Project. I'm Debbie Ponticus.
And I'm Jen Newman.
Join us as we challenge the traditional definitions of success so you can build a fulfilling path of your own.
Get ready for inspired, candid conversations while gaining tools, inspiration, and confidence to create your own authentic success story. I think we all grew up being told, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, why would you make a change to something that is working, that is successful, and is putting you at the top of your industry? Our guest on today's podcast decided to do just that. Stuart Crawford was at the top of his game, leading a top-producing mortgage team when he decided to take a leap of faith and start his own mortgage business. That's right, in the middle of COVID. He was faced with what he saw as the perfect storm. And with the support of his family and longtime business partner, he asked his best friend to join forces, and together, they launched Bison Ventures. His story will inspire you to listen to your heart, follow your dreams, and head straight into the storm of possibilities. Hi, Stu.
Hello.
We are so happy that you are with us today, taking the time to just sit down and chat about all sorts of things. So thank you for doing that with us. We are so excited to have you.
All sorts of things. So get ready.
I'm excited, half nervous. We'll make this work.
We'll make it work.
But thank you guys for having me. You guys are awesome. I love you. So
likewise.
Thank you.
So we really would love to dig in right off the bat. We as your intro already stated, CEO of Bison Ventures. What we would love to hear is when you first started in mortgage, what that looked like and what brought you into mortgage to begin with.
Wow, those are great questions. Well, let's see. What brought me into mortgages? Kind of the joke goes that nobody when they were in fifth grade said I want to be a mortgage guy or gal when they grow up. So, and I surely didn't. Fastest version I can tell you is I was a senior at ASU. And I needed a job my last semester of school before I graduated.
Yeah.
And so I literally said, my parameters are find something that meets my class schedule. So when I'm not in class, obviously I can go work.
Yep.
Doesn't interrupt that. And has something to do with business. I was getting a finance degree. So I opened up the school paper, the ASU State Press, just went through it, found some job. It seemed to mark all those boxes. Didn't even really know what it was. It was for an ALO position. Didn't know what that was. It was assistant loan officer. Believe me, that title sounds a lot more regal than what I actually ended up doing. And so this was, and keep in mind, this is when the first, I call it refi boom, was kind of happening in 01, 02. And so everybody was becoming a mortgage lender and trying to do that. And these call centers were popping up everywhere. And so that's basically what it was. It was this call center, probably 20 of us. And I would literally go in. There were these white lead sheets with just names and phone numbers, and I had my scripts, and I would just go in and call for like 4 hours straight.
Oh boy.
And my number one job was to basically convince somebody that they should meet with an actual loan officer and then set the appointment.
Oh, wow.
And so
fun.
That's how I started in the mortgage industry, and I started doing that. And what was the second question?
The second question, from starting in mortgage and then basically what drew you to it to begin with, and then that evolution of getting involved at the level that you are now. Like,
basically,
how did that, what was the impetus
why
of
in the
it?
world are you still doing it after that?
Yeah.
Oh, there's been many moments, believe me.
Not very exciting. I'm not
There's
going to
been
lie.
many moments where I had the parachute on my back. I'm like, I'm just going.
I'm done, yeah.
So I take that job, right? I graduate, and now I'm looking for my real job, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as I'm looking, I continue with this job.
Yep.
And after 4 or 5 months of it, got pretty good at it. And I started having loan officers pull me to the side and say, hey, I'll pay you cash under the table if you come in on a Saturday and just call for me only.
Wow.
And I was like, huh. And then I started my hamster wheels going.
Right.
I'm like, well, I wonder if I can just do what this guy does. So long story short, another guy approached me and said, hey, I'm going to build a call center. Come with me. Help me build this thing. I'm like, okay, I'll go with you. Well, I'm still looking for my real job, by the way.
Yeah.
And it was a tiny call center that we built and did that for several months. And then from there, he said, you know what? I actually think you should be a loan officer. Why don't you come work at this mortgage company? My partner's one of the owners, and come meet with him. And I will tell you one quick funny story if I'm allowed to.
Please.
So I will never, you know how there's these moments in your life you vividly remember?
For sure.
Even though I barely remember like what my kid was wearing this morning. And so I remember going into his office. It was like out of a movie. He's got like the big wooden desk and it's like intimidating, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
And he's behind the desk and he starts talking to me, asking me about myself, what I want to do, etc. And he goes, Stuart, wait, hold on. Are you guys cutting this?
We can.
We can.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I was about to cuss and I'm like, oops.
Yes,
you can totally
full
cuss.
on.
Even the F word, everything?
Whatever
you can say
you need
whatever
to
your
Just to say
little
what he
heart
said, I have to-
desires.
okay.
Yes,
No.
go.
All right.
No, go ahead.
Go.
Thank
Sorry,
you
excuse
for
me. Yeah,
thinking of
I
that.
had a
but
pause there.
We open.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
open
We're good.
to full swearing.
Okay, well, full swearing's on. I'm excited now. I'm going to take my shirt off real quick.
We do not discriminate.
Exactly.
So I go in his office. He's kind of interviewing me. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds good. And he literally goes, Stuart, he goes, there's money growing on trees out there. And he stands up off his desk and goes, go fucking grab it. And he slams his fist on the table. And I'm like,
You're like, wow,
got
is this candid
Okay.
camera?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
and then he grabs his cell phone. His cell phone's ringing. And he goes, you know what this is? And I'm like, cell phone? He goes, no, it's an ATM. You answer it. And I was like,
Wow.
And
Yes.
I'm
Wow.
21. I mean,
Totally.
I'm like, I think I know what he just said, but I'm not sure what's happening.
Right.
So anyway, so I start the real mortgage job. Now I'm not looking for my real job anymore. And I tell my dad, hey, I think I found something. So I start becoming a loan officer. Did that for I think about 6 months, and I quit. And I quit because remember, this was the time, like you guys have seen the movie The Big Short.
Totally.
That was this era.
Okay.
Yeah.
So negative amortizing loans, no doc, all of these crazy creative scenarios that
Sure.
anybody could get, with a heartbeat could get a loan.
Yeah.
And I started to pick up pretty quickly that my manager at the time was a yes man, as I call it. I'd say, hey, can we do this for the? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it was always that. And I'm just going, that's kind of weird. We can do everything. But after a while, I just got the sense that remember, the industry is only what I knew of it. Right?
Sure.
Right.
And so in my tunnel vision, it wasn't very professional. It wasn't what I had dreamed about as far as like starting a career and
Sure.
being a professional. And I just quit. And I remember my dad going, why? And I go, Dad, it's sleazy. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I know it's a dirty word, but I just, so then I went back to looking for my real job, swore off the mortgage industry forever. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, not too long after that, a girl I was dating, her roommate's boyfriend, who I'm still close with today, owned a recruiting company, a headhunting company. And we're hanging out one time and he goes, did you ever find a job? And I'm like, no. And I think I'm 22. And he goes, well, you should go take this interview at this company. I have a few friends that work there and they love it. I said, sounds good. What kind of business is it? And he goes, it's mortgages. And I said, I'm not doing it. And he goes, no, just go. And I told him, I go, I'm not going to go. I appreciate you trying to help me. And he wouldn't let it go. So finally, I literally went to the interview just to like stop him from asking me and to do him a favor. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go. First interview, amazing. I remember I left. I went to lunch with this manager at the time at this company. And I called my dad and I said, hey, and he goes, how'd it go? And I go, it was kind of weird. I'm like, we didn't even talk about like mortgages. I'm like, all I did was ask about my family, you guys. And I'm like, it was kind of cool. And he's like, well, that sounds pretty promising. You should probably keep talking to him. So 6 interviews later, they put me through. So now I'm going from feeling like, oh, getting a mortgage job is easy to like, this is a real company.
Yes.
Right.
They're flying out a regional manager from Texas. I'm having breakfast with him. This guy's coming out. And I'm getting nervous. Like, am I even going to get this job?
Sure.
So I did. And I was super lucky because my mentorship was off the charts. I had, Keith Teagarden was my branch manager, still dear to my heart, one of my good friends. And he taught me so much. And I was just surrounded by great professionals that wanted to help other people. I could go in and ask questions. They would help me. And that's where the real mortgage career started.
Sure.
Yeah.
And now I'm still doing it.
Wow.
You sure are.
Yeah, you are.
Sure are. So what, you've alluded to your dad now a few times. You've referenced him. What role did your dad play in your path in terms of career?
So my dad is like the quiet in the storm. My mom is not. And he is just somebody that I was really lucky. I shouldn't say lucky, but I didn't grow up in a household where mom and dad tried to like steer you down a certain path as far as profession was concerned.
Sure.
Yes, it was like going to college was like a given. Like that was never even a question, which is interesting because my wife grew up differently. She was the first one in her family to go to college. So that was like a strange thing. Whereas I just grew up, it just shows you like it's just what I knew.
Yeah.
So I just knew I had to go to college, get good grades and be a good student. And then that's all they cared about. Right. So, and my dad's a physician, and I always have people ask me like, well, why didn't you want to do that? And I'm like, I literally never one time in my whole life thought about being a doctor. Literally never once.
Yeah.
Always wanted to do business. And so he never pushed me, to your question. It was just more of like, he was always there. He wanted to know what was going on. He's great to get advice from. He's very like level-headed. And when he says something, it's like, okay, that's pretty good, Dad, you know? So
yeah,
I'm extremely fortunate, very great support person. And
for sure, which I think is so interesting because we talk a lot here about that your path is your own and that there is no real linear path. It can be very circuitous, but also there's something about that individual spirit that happens with each person's path. And it sounds like your dad really honored that and just gave you the space to make those decisions, all while encouraging you along the way.
100%. Yeah.
Which is really
So that was
important.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, and talking about family, you know, I think anyone who knows you knows that your path, while it might have taken a lot of different roads, you really fell back on the support of your friends and your family. And so much that a lot of your business and its growth and your business relationships and Bison Ventures is built off of and with friends and family. So talk to us about the importance of that when you decided to kind of go off on your own, not on your own, but again, with friends and saying, hey, I want to, let's do something. So tell us a little bit about, or give us some stories there that what got you here today.
How much time do we have?
As long as you need.
No, I'm kidding. So it's a great question. And, you know, I'll start with, there's something that I've always called the pilot flame, which is that burning sensation deep in your soul. You know, it's there. It could be about anything in your life. And when that thing fires up, it's telling you something, right? Yeah. Your mind is thinking about something. And many of us, me, guilty as charged, kind of ignore it because it's scary, or maybe it's telling you something that, whether it's break up with the girlfriend forever and you're scared to do that, or whatever it is in your life, right? Sure. And I kept having these moments where that would register, the pilot flame would turn on. And so, and I kept just not listening to it. It was like, I think it'd be cool to have my own company. And I was very lucky because I grew up in the business under Jay and Keith, you know, the founders of VIP Mortgage, and they've taught me so much. And I got to watch them build a company from 10 people to over 700 people in the height of COVID. And I was one of the first employees there on day one. So I got a front row, you know, seat to the movie. And so, of course, for me, I saw two good friends that grew up together go do this journey.
Yes.
That seemed awesome to me. I can remember times being at Christmas parties, manager events, and they would get up there and speak, and I would be sitting there going like, I want to do that, right? And so, but it was always scary, and I never told anybody about it. And so this is going to kind of go all over, sorry. But so one of my best friends growing up, Jeremy West, who now is one of my partners at Bison, we took different paths, both business, but we graduated high school together. My wife actually went to high school with us too. So she knew what she was getting into, basically. And I went to ASU, he went to CU Boulder, and he went into the commercial banking world, ended up moving to San Francisco, was with Chase Bank, so corporate job, right?
Yeah.
Sure. 18 years.
Wow.
Moved very quickly up the ranks, and that was sort of his journey. And then I was off doing the mortgage thing in Arizona, and we would get together, you know, family deals in the summer, whatever. Sure. And we would always kind of half jokingly, even with our wives, like, God, wouldn't it be awesome if we ran a business together? Because we're kind of a yin and yang if people know us, and we have different skill sets, and we complement each other to a lot of ways. And I mean, to one point it got so crazy that, you know, we were all dog people. We love labs. They love Goldens. And it was like, hey, let's start a golden retriever farm. I mean, just like ridiculous stuff, right? Probably a couple drinks involved in those, but we'd talk about it but it was never like really talking about it. Yes. But we talked about it jokingly enough that it was like, wouldn't this be cool?
Yeah.
And so I remember at one point I was hanging out with him, and I was like, hey, how's work going? What's going on? And I could just kind of tell he's complacent. You know, we've all been there. Sure. I've been there many times. And he's like, it's fine now. I'm just basically just doing my thing. And kind of just happy in where I'm at. And as we kept having those conversations, I'm like, well, what if you want to go to the next, like, it's just corporate America, right? You got to climb the ladder in a certain way. And he's like, the only way I can go to the next level, which I knew he could. I used to joke with people like, Jeremy could be the CEO of Chase. I mean, the guy is that sharp. And he's like, I'd have to move to New York or LA, and I don't want to uproot my family and live in either of those places. And he was in San Francisco, kind of outside the Bay Area. And I said, well, that's fair enough, And so he's like, so I'm just going to just keep doing this. And I remember thinking, like, in my head, that's kind of sad. Like, this dude has the most potential of most people I know. It's unfortunate that, like, he has a whole tank left we can tap into.
Right. Yeah.
So, what happened is, and I know I'm all over on this, but I was already thinking about it. I had mentioned to my wife probably right around COVID when it started. And as you guys know, especially in the mortgage business, I wish I had 12 more rain buckets to catch all that rain because loans fell from the sky.
That's right.
And we were very busy. We were very fortunate to be able to have that wind in our sails. And, but I had no time to think. We were so busy. I have 3 little kids. It was like work. And I remember saying something to my wife going, hey, what do you think about, like, what if Jeremy and I hadn't talked to him about this. What if Jeremy and I did this? And I kind of got that look of like, she's like, you already work so much. And you're out, the phones test your face 7 days a week. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it was just a dead on arrival. Right.
Yep. And at this time you were top producing team. Like you were, I mean, anyone else would not be sitting here thinking possibly like, oh, this is a good time to just tap out and maybe start from scratch.
Correct.
When I'm like way at the top of my game, like you said, things were falling from the sky. You had a great team, a great thing going.
And you had risen through the ranks at VIP. You were one of the top producing teams in the country.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, it was not, we're not overstating. Like you really, truly had built something fantastic.
I appreciate that. Yeah. We tried.
Yeah. And then you were like, well, maybe there's more.
And I would
flame
say that
started.
The
again.
flame. I know. It's like this pilot line.
And I will tell you that, I can probably think vividly about 3 times in my that 20-year span before Bison, where I was not happy, complacent, tired of walking into the same factory door, making the same widget, going home with, it was just mundane. And what's interesting is each of those times, financially and economically speaking, I was doing the best. So that told me something once I listened to that.
That's right.
And so I went through, multiple reiterations, reigniting who I was going to be in the mortgage business, doing the manager thing, doing different things with VIP, which I loved all of them in their season.
Yeah. Yep.
But I got to this point where I'll never forget. My wife told me, she's like, you don't let grass grow under your toes. That's your problem.
Yeah.
Right. You just get and so, so then now, back to, so I mentioned it to her. She's like, no, you're too busy. So then the first summer of COVID, right? So this is July of 2020.
Yep.
And we do the world is shut down.
Yep.
And so I'm like, we got to do something. 3 little kids, we got to do something. Yeah. So I did the quintessential RV trip, which by the way, if you haven't done it.
No, we did that during COVID. Yep.
If mortgages doesn't work out, I'm going to be an RV driver the rest of my life because it's amazing.
Let's go.
But so we rent the RV. I put this trip together super last minute. And this is a very personal part of the story, just to give you guys a disclaimer. And so I tell Jeremy, I'm like, hey, here's my routes. I just figured it out. I'm going to go stay here, go up to Yellowstone. And he's like, oh, well, we're going to be in Park City because, his mother-in-law has a place there and we're going to be here with the kids. And by the way, his sons are my godsons. And he's like, well, why don't you stop through and come see us? I'm like, perfect. We'll add Park City to the trip. So we're leaving Moab. I have no cell phone service. We're on our way to Park City. I'm about 2 hours out. I call him and I go, hey, man, what's up? And I can instantly tell something's wrong. And of course I'm thinking like, okay, your wife yelled at you or something, right? Nothing major, but you can just tell.
You can just feel it.
Didn't
not
sleep
himself.
good. The kids are being annoying. Something's going on.
Yep.
And I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, didn't you get my text last night? And I'm like, no. And I start looking at my phone and I'm like, I had no service. I don't have anything. He's like, oh my gosh. He goes, I go, dude, what is going on? He goes, I'm in the ICU with my son.
Oh my gosh.
And of course I'm like, what happened? And the version is essentially him and his son were mountain biking. This is his oldest. And I think at the time he was maybe 10, maybe 9 or 10. And they were mountain biking and Jeremy was behind him. And he came up over the last part of the trail and his son was face down in the dirt with a bunch of people around him. Not breathing, doesn't know what's wrong with him. And by the way, in this conversation, I'm getting just about that much information. But he's like, he's fine. Because, of course, that's the first question. Is he okay?
Is he okay?
He's okay. We're getting discharged tonight. He just got a really bad concussion. He's going to be fine, 100%. So everyone's like, okay, cool. And I said to him, I said, look, you want me to come to the hospital? He's like, no. He's like, you guys go settle your family, and we're going to be there for a few days. And I said, look, I'm going to stay up tonight just in case you need to come have a drink with me. I go, no pressure. You just let me know. So we get to our, VRBO. I get everybody settled. Kids fall asleep. Wife falls asleep. I think it's like 10:30 at night. And I get a text and he's like, hey, you still up for that drink? And I'm like, of course, come over. And our places are like 5 minutes from each other. So he comes over, and I hope you don't mind me telling these, Jeremy, but he comes over, and mind you, I've known this guy since middle school. Okay?
Yeah.
And I've never seen him shed one single tear ever until this moment. And we're on the couch, and I go, dude, what happened? And he couldn't instantly.
He needed to let it go.
Was super emotional. And his life basically flashed before his eyes. He came up on him. He didn't know if he was breathing. His tongue was hanging out. He was in a pool of blood. God. They called an ambulance, a helicopter. The ambulance got there first. He's in the ambulance, and they're not telling him what's wrong. And he's trying to grab him. They're like, you can't touch him. So he went through this 20 minute window, I'm guessing, that probably felt like 10 years of sitting there. No one can tell him what's wrong with his son. Is he paralyzed? Is he right?
Is he alive?
Absolutely.
Is he going to make it?
Absolute terror. The worst thing a parent or anybody could go through. And so that then led us, once we got through that part, that led into a conversation about man, I'm like, dude, life's too short. Your job at Chase, if you're not going to move up and on, you need to quit. You just need to quit. And it wasn't about anything else. And, we talked about that for a bit. And then at some point I said, look, we're not getting any younger. We had just turned 40. And I said, if we're ever going to do something about starting a business together, doing something together, it's now or never. And I'm too dumb to do anything but mortgages. So if you want to start a mortgage company, I'll do it. Because if I'm going to jump off the cliff, I trust you to jump with me. And so we end the night, and he goes home. We actually get, and then when we left on the RV trip to head back on the road, I'm driving, and Rachel's next to me, and I get this text message, and I look at it, and it's super long, and it's from him. And I'm like, and I start reading it, trying not to crash. And it's basically, to the extent of, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being there for me. And then he says, I don't know if you were serious about what you said, but if you are, fuck it, I'm in.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I literally, you would think I'd be jumping for joy. I went to a place of terror.
You're like,
I was like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And Rachel's like, what's wrong? What's going on? And I'm like, and I hand her the phone, and I'm just like, I'm sorry. I'm like, just read this. And I'm like this, just waiting for her response.
You're waiting.
Right. And it's like, seems like it's forever.
What did you say? What
did you say?
And I look at her, and sorry for all the cussing, but I got to tell it how it is. I look at her and I go, what do you think? And she goes, fuck it, you have to do it. And I was like, oh boy.
My God.
So it was like, I got the blessing. And so, of course, that was the beginning of the RV trip. So all I did was think about it the whole trip. Like, what are we going to do? How's this going to work? Oh my God, Jay and Keith, VIP. Like, what? There's just so much going through my head.
For sure.
So I guess I can pause there, but that was where that's where the sparks lit, and that's where the pilot flame became something else. And it was like, now we have to pay attention to this thing and see if it's something we want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's not funny, but I think that what you're sharing, I think a lot of people that are entrepreneurial or that just feel like, gosh, there's something else for me. Is there something else there? And like you said, this pilot light that's there in all of us probably. You had an opportunity, and maybe it's like sometimes we say things because we're expecting someone to tell us you can't do it. Right. And then we'll know, okay, yeah, you're right. It was a bad idea. I shouldn't do it. Yeah. But this time you got the let's go. And that's got to be like, wait, I was expecting maybe this would happen in 3 or 4 years. We'd kind of talk about it. I haven't even told my wife, like, I'm actually doing really well. Like, and now it was like someone holding you to the fire. Like, you had the fire going. He flamed the fire. He fanned it. And now he said, are you in or are you out?
Yeah.
That is a huge moment. And kudos to your wife for supporting you in that, and for being brave enough to put that out there, and for the two of you guys to recognize, whether you knew it at the time or not, that this was just destiny. Like, this was supposed to happen. I have goosebumps just thinking about it. I think that's the coolest story ever. And it's like very inspiring. It's very inspiring for someone to hear, like, it's okay to be scared shitless, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like,
and I can tell you, anybody out there that's thinking it, scared shitless is an understatement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't even tell you what I went through emotionally and mentally with all that. But the other thing I do want to make sure, to weave into it is, for probably 8 years before that, Ryan Madrid and I were already partners at the Crawford team with our production team at VIP. And we became brothers very, very quickly. And that's the other very cool thing. I see both of them as friends before anything else.
Yeah.
And Ryan and I had been talking about, let's rebrand. In the beginning, him and I kind of unofficially were like, hey, once this business grows to a point where you're bringing in almost half and then I'm, we're kind of,
sure,
let's rebrand this thing and call it Crawford Madrid, whatever. Yeah. Right. And so we had already been talking about that. He was already getting his own pilot flame of wanting to do something different. He was doing the same thing for a long time. And it was very cool because where I feel super blessed and I'm really grateful for is I can have these conversations with my partners and there's no judgment. There's no, because we're friends, right? Yeah. I can look Ryan in the eyes and be like, dude, I'm stressed. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but like, and then he can come to me and be like, I'm having a bad day. Here's what's going on. Like, cool, you leave, I'll take over. Right. And it's very nice to be able to have that like trust tree of being able to confidence, right?
Absolutely.
And so because him and I were already having those conversations, that was already in the back of my head that we were going to be doing something soon anyway.
Yep.
Wasn't necessarily starting a company. And then when the Jeremy thing comes in, now it's like, okay, well now this just got to a whole nother level really fast.
Did.
Right. This got real fast.
Well, and you each have your own zone of genius, which I think is what makes this company so special, is that you all know what you each do so very well. And to have your roles, your C-suite roles, the way you've set them up, you all are able to really shine at what you do. And that is not only infectious to be around you, but I also think I have a piggyback question about the friends and family, because a lot of times we're told, there is that misnomer out there that if you're friends, you shouldn't get into business.
You read my mind. That was going to be my next question. I was like, okay, so like this is not what we're normally told.
We're not normally told. And I know that those of us who have started teams, started this business, you've started your own business, it was actually the friendship is really one of the most sacred parts, because that's where that respect, that fundamental respect and trust come from. Did you have any apprehension? Or was it more for you that it was those things that actually made it that much better? You
just nailed it. Zero apprehension ever. And I think that when you hear the whole never get into business with family and friends, and believe me, we all get why people say that.
Yeah.
I think that most of that comes from a place of trust, right?
Yes.
And I know that sounds weird to say, well, what do you mean? Of course I trust my friend. But I trust these guys immensely with anything.
Exactly.
And so I'm not going to get lied to. No one's going to be deceitful. Those are the things that I think mess up a lot of partnerships.
Yes.
And so I never even thought about it. It just seemed like that was what we were going to do. And
Oh, I love that.
I mean, is there going off of that? Because now flash forward, you guys, Bison Ventures is well on its way to being one of the top lending companies in Phoenix and Arizona. Beyond.
Now you're lending in multiple
states.
Yeah.
You have one best place to work. Mm-hmm. You have an amazing team. I think we've talked many times, because we've had transactions together, that when people meet you, they're like, oh, well, I only want to work with you, until they meet the rest of your team. And you're like, oh, wait, they're all cool. They're all really great. So and they're all really amazing at what they do. So you've gone through all of this. Like, what do you think some advice would be if there are people out there that may be contemplating, whether it's this flame that they're afraid to follow or, turn the fire up, or maybe this whole idea of going into a business with friends? Is there anything that you can think of that you're like, I wish I knew this?
That's a great question. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, I wish I would have done it sooner. Right? The opportunity wasn't there, at least the way it went down with the stars aligning and, on the RV trip. But but knowing that I thought about it sooner, I wish I would have had the courage sooner to look fear in the face and say, you don't scare me, and doing something. Because fear holds everybody back. Yeah. And that's what happens. Sure. You say you're going to do something, you look over the cliff and you go, that's a long ways down, dude. I don't know about that. I think I'm just going to keep paying my bills with my salary and not worry about it. So that's number one. when the pilot, at least for me personally, I've had pilot flame moments with all sorts of things in my life. They've always been correct. So whatever that flame or intuition was, it was absolutely right. And I should have listened to it way sooner.
But do you feel that there was a lesson that came before it in order for you to listen to it? Because I think that internal voice, our gut, we can call it instinct, we can call it God, we can call it universe, we can call it self, whatever it is. A lot of times there is either a setback before this, which is really a setup. There's something that precedes it that it would not work the way it does if that hadn't happened first. Did you feel that with Bison, that there was something that happened before that you had to experience before it was the right time?
No, that's a great point. I do think that all of the time leading up to Bison, my experience, the situations I had to navigate and manage, those all prepared me as well as I could have been, I think.
Correct.
To be able to do something like this. But for me personally, there wasn't one standout event where I was like, if I didn't have that, this would have never happened.
Well, and it certainly sounds the timing with Jeremy's journey, that was a pivotal, that moment had to happen. Yeah. That was the turning point, which was a huge component of it.
And by the way, when that happened, we were honest with each other and said, look, let's just take 6 months, you and I, let's just research this and see if it even makes sense.
Sure.
And when we get to the end of that 6-month cycle, if we both shake hands and say, you know what, it actually doesn't make sense and we're better off with the jobs we have now, we high five and move on. Yeah. At least we exhausted it though.
Right.
Because by the way, there's only 2 ways I feel like you can get rid of the pilot flame before it burns the house down. Number one is obviously you have to listen to it and address it. And you either exhaust the options on whether or not that flame is real, which is what we tried to do. And if it's not real, you just put it out, you're good to go till the next one pops up about something else.
Yep.
If you do go looking at those options and go out there and find out, oh, this flame this is
real.
Legit.
This is legit.
Then you know, and then it's like you get to that point, and we got to that point, and it was still scary because it's actually there was a small part of me, it's like, I kind of hope that maybe this doesn't make sense because I'm already going to all the places of doubt, right?
Right.
Sure.
I'm not going to have a paycheck anymore. I'm going to, financially things are going to look different. I've got 3 little kids. I know I keep saying that, but you guys are mothers. You understand it. Life kind of works right now. Like all this risk. Why? It's not like I'm 22 and have all this time to recover if the plane goes into the mountain, right?
Right.
So anyway, so that was, it was super scary.
Yeah.
But then we got to the point where we're going to do this. It was like, oh, now this is really real because now the next step is for me that I was dreading. That's just lack for a better word right now. The conversation with my partners at VIP because they were so great to me for all those years, still are. And I knew I had to somehow sit down and explain how I felt, what I wanted to do, but somehow do it in a way that didn't make them feel like they failed and that I was leaving them, right? Yeah. And that I could go into that for 2 hours. I mean, my wife can tell you all the times, how many times I sat there sleepless. Like, I don't know. I felt horrible.
Yeah.
So that part was really hard.
I think it's an important piece though, that exceeded your expectations because that conversation and facing that fear led to not only their blessing, but also continued endorsement. So I think that there's something, that doesn't happen, I think, for the most part, right? Those can tend to leave bad taste in people's mouths. You had the exact opposite of that, which to me, you still share space. There's still partnership. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but it's just really extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
And that your entire team did not hesitate. Everybody came with you, which is also just another testament to the leader that you are, which is really, and I know you don't enjoy being told that, but it's really fair. Credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy though. You launched that company in a really challenging time. And now as the market has started to turn, you weathered a lot up front just based on the state of the market. How did you keep your team motivated, committed, connected, and so much so, as Debbie spoke about earlier, that you were voted one of the best places to work. Now you're up for another nomination for Best Small Business. Come on, Stu. I mean, that is really, you want to
Tell
talk
us
about
how to do
defying
it.
the
Whiskey
odds.
and
like
barbecue.
Okay, done. Yay. I love
It's easy.
simple.
Fine. Okay, I love
Perfect.
that.
I love
Yeah.
simple
That's
answers.
perfect.
When are you hiring?
Debbie and I are becoming loan officers
Yes,
with you
we are.
ASAP.
We
Be
want
careful
whiskey
what
and
you wish
barbecue.
for.
I know.
No, I appreciate all that. And well, there's a lot of questions there. Well, first of all, so the next scary thing was then telling our team, right? So Ryan and I, just quickly, Ryan and I were like, let's do this one-on-ones. We're gonna take everybody to lunch, do it in person.
Yeah.
And this was actually one of those moments where it did feel really good because we're nervous, right? It's like,
Sure.
It's like, hey, Trish, so we're going to start a company. Do you want to come with us? And what was amazing is every single one of those conversations, and there was many, I mean, a dozen, everybody had the same reaction and response to some degree, which was, we would basically like, we're like prepping our, like, how are we going to say it? How are we going to pitch it?
Yep.
And Ryan, Ryan never gets nervous. And I'm sitting there like, got like flashcards in my car, like a dork. And Ryan just smooth as day, and then we'd go in and then we get better and better at it. And then they just would say, yeah, oh, okay. And then we'd be like, so do you have any questions? You know what I mean? And every time it was always a process question. It was never, and it was always like, well, you know how we push this button over here on the right? Do we still push that button, or we're gonna have to like do a new button down here, right?
We have to learn something new.
Yeah, exactly. It was all like,
Or
is the
it
train
gonna
on
be
the same tracks?
Yeah.
Or how do we?
Right.
And so that takeaway for me was like, oh, we're good. And so that also told me we have to build this thing, at least at startup phase, to mimic as closely to the world that we had already built and spent 12 years building before.
Yeah. Yes.
So that way we weren't moving people's cheese too much, because
Right.
that is stressful, because
Right.
humans, as we all know, are not great at change.
Yeah.
But the better you get at it, the more the world opens up.
Amen.
Right.
And I learned that way too late in life. So that's another thing to a young entrepreneur. I'd say, take change in the face and just put that bad boy on the ground and keep going. Because
Love
right,
that.
like I wish I'd known that sooner, or understood it. And so anyway, we did that. Everybody came on board, which was super exciting.
Yeah.
And I say that because I think to some degree we had a leg up in the how'd you keep everybody connected, because even though we were a startup company, this team had been together for, better part of a decade.
Yeah,
most of us.
that's true.
And so we were already connected. The trust was there. It was already like, hey, Bree, you're going to jump off a cliff. I'll go with you. Right. Vice versa, or whoever it was. And so now that doesn't mean that when you start a mortgage company, literally on the worst day you possibly could. We started March 1st, 2022. I joked it like we could have thrown darts and never. I mean, we started the company and one engine blew up on the plane already, and it was like
just everyone's like on the plane. Like, oh,
they were
go,
just
go,
about
race,
to,
race.
they were just about to bring out the peanuts and the free drinks, and then the whole thing went bad. And so we're like this in the air, trying not to go into the mountain. And so, so it was tough, and I took it very personally too, because again, you go to this place where you overthink that. Sure. I knew I couldn't have predicted the market, but we had run the pro formas on worst case scenario, like if shit hits the fan, and it was way worse than that. So it was like, I thought we prepared as leaders, but we couldn't have prepared for that, I guess. And so, at the time, I didn't feel like we did our best, but now looking back, I'm like, we did all we could, man.
You did.
At least to some degree. And so I think the way it was a really challenging time, because people are struggling paying their bills, and they're not always going to tell you, right? Pride gets the best of everybody. People don't like to admit that, hey, I have a problem, I need help.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I say that because that's an important and integral part of our culture, which is, tell us if something's going on. I know it's a sensitive thing, because I never want people to feel like if I'm like, hey, Jen, what's up? I tell something's up, is something going on at home. And I say those things genuinely, but I also sometimes have to catch myself and realize like, they may not want to tell me about their personal life. And by the way, I'm not trying to pry into their personal life. I'm just trying to get to the root of what's going on.
Absolutely.
So I can help you, because if I haven't been through it, I probably know somebody who has, and we can figure this out. Right. And so I think just always being like that, and just making sure, like, guys, talk to us if you need us. Talk to us if you need us. And I do think for a lot of people, and I can think of some off the top of my head, it took them a long time to finally open up, right? It takes people time to realize they can trust in that. So I don't even know if I'm still answering any of the questions you just asked me.
No, it totally are.
Yeah. I think that your message, and I think our listeners are going to have a lot of really great talking points and takeaways, because I think it's an incredibly inspiring story of just listening to your inner voice, listening to what you're supposed to do, having the courage to sometimes jump off the cliff and hope your parachute opens. And so I think it really was very helpful. And we were really excited to have you on to be able to tell that story, because I think it needs to be heard.
Yes.
And I think, most of us go through life hearing, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And your story is one, to me, that's more about, well, it's not broken, but it could be better. And to take that and run with it does kind of it's just why you are who you are today, and why Bison Ventures is who they are today, was because you saw something that was going really well and said, we can do it better. And so that's inspiring. And I think as our wrap up final question for you, what I think we'd like to hear is, how do you define success and how has that evolved over time?
For sure.
You guys have to hit me with the college question, make me think now.
That's right.
Just kidding. How do I define success? Well, it's actually pretty easy. I personally define success as wealth and relationships. I mean, that's my simplest answer I can give you. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a big relationship person. I know a lot of people say that, and I think there's probably something wrong with me, because I will talk to anybody. I mean, I'll talk to the busboy at the restaurant and be like, "Where are you from?" And my wife thinks it's hilarious, right? In a sweet way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's
like I love people. I love hearing about where you came from. I love hearing how you got from A to B. If you're going to C or are you going to D, how are you going to get to D? I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because every walk of life has a story. I don't care who you are.
Amen.
And I've always just felt strongly that no matter if you get two people in a room, no matter how different, they will find at least one thing in common.
Always.
It could be as simple as, I like Coors Light. Hey, you do too. Cool.
Right.
I hate everything else about you, but we can have a Coors Light together.
We can drink and,
Exactly.
But I mean, I just think that's, and to further answer a question you asked earlier, like what would you tell young entrepreneurs? Because I just got done telling our herd this. We call the Bison team the Bison herd, which is, I wish earlier in my career, I would have thought bigger in terms of relationships, because when you're new in a career, especially a sales career where you're supposed to develop relationships, build a book, right? Doesn't matter what you're selling. You focus on the direct and what I'd call the easy access to that client. Meaning, if I'm a loan officer, I'm going after real estate agents, right? Because you guys touch those people all day, and that's the easiest way for me to get them. And that's what you did, and it made sense, and it works for a lot of people. But I wish I would have thought bigger and just went and had coffees with all sorts of people, different people in different industries, because it's something I started to focus on doing the last 2 years to expand the network for Bison's sake, right? For our exposure, et cetera. And I can't even tell you how many like serendipitous connections have come through that of people not even in the real estate business. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I know this person, you should go work for this guy. And it's like, when you're constantly helping each other, it's community, which I'm big on.
Yes.
And B, it's like, when I said the world it busts wide open, and it's like, you have no idea what door is going to open next. And then it turns into a game, right? It's like, you wake up every morning, you're like, I can't wait to see what door opens or closes. Right.
Yeah,
then it's, a mentor of mine told me once, and I'll never forget this. He said, look, windows of opportunity open and close very quickly. And when it opens, if you even think the thought that that's maybe for you, you got to jump through it fast and just move on. And one of the best pieces of advice my dad, to wrap up with him again, ever gave me is, we've all been to forks in the road, right? Personally, relationships, professionally, whatever. And we tend to overthink, right? Well, if I do this and this and this, and you create all these stories that usually don't come true. And I remember I was going through one of those at some point in my career, and I don't even remember what it was about. And he's like, Stuart, it's like, all you can do is take the information available to you today, just make a decision, take that path, and stop looking in the rearview mirror. It's that simple. Like, there's no regrets, right?
Love that.
So I do love that one. And it is true. It's like, it's, just take in the thoughts. Don't think too much.
Don't think too much.
I love that.
So,
this has been amazing.
Yep.
What a gift to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Where can our listeners find you and learn more about you? Or if they want to learn more about your business, or maybe they have a loan question, or maybe it's someone who just wants to pick your brain about how you made the choices you did. Maybe someone's wanting to think about building a business. How can they reach you?
I love that, by the way. I love having those conversations. BisonVentures.com is the easiest. You can find us all on there. That's probably the simplest.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Find my email, whatever. I mean, I can give you my home address, but that could get weird. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Only if you want to drink Coors Light.
Yeah, exactly. We got more than Coors Light. Don't worry.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Stu.
being here today.
Thank you guys so much. And I just want to say I respect both of you a ton. You guys are both beasts in your own right for what you do for a living, but not only what you represent professionally in our industry, which the three of us know, we don't exactly come from an industry that's just, teeming with great professionals, but there are a lot of great ones. And I'm just happy to be connected with you guys and what you guys represent just as people. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, like attracts like, Stu. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. If you loved this episode and know of someone who would find value in it, please spread the word and share it with a friend. We are passionate about redefining success, and it would mean the world if you could help us get our mission out to as many people as possible. Please take a minute to write a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. You can also hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Connect with us on Instagram at Success Resequencing Project or via our website at www.successresequencing.com. We'd love to hear your story.